intensity, bottom line. Never take a play off.
He was incredibly strong.
Two-time first-team All-Pro, four-time Pro Bowl player, a dominant player at 3 different positions.
He was the same every play, balls out.
Just knocked the crap out of the guy across from you.
It was an incredible accomplishment to be dominant at one position in the NFL in your career, but to be dominant at 3 positions.
He could disengage from a blocker better than just about anybody I've ever seen.
His just pure raw strength, his quickness off the ball, his understanding of leverage and just sheer power. It was not about finesse, it was not about being slick. For Joe, it was simple. You know what I'm gonna do, I know what you're gonna do, and stop me if you can.
You know, we really need, as a Hall of Fame voting group, we need to re-examine some careers. And I think we need to re-examine the career of Joe Klecko.
For the youngest of football players, Canton, Ohio is the ultimate destination. A bronze bust is the pinnacle of a legendary career. In 2000, former Oakland Raider defensive lineman Howie Long reached football immortality.
Another player who influenced my career as a young player was a guy by the name of Joe Klecko. He made the Pro Bowl as a defensive end, a defensive tackle, and as a nose tackle.
17 years later, Joe Klecko is still waiting for that call.
There have been a number of players who have been dominant in their era, who, in my mind, warranted consideration and induction into the Hall of Fame. And I think it's time for Joe Klecko to get that nod. I really believe that.
In the 6th round of the 1977 NFL Draft, the New York Jets selected Joe Klecko out of Temple University. Despite dominating for the Owls on the defensive line, Klecko was unheralded and relatively unknown as he made his entrance into professional football.
Left guard can't handle Klecko.
He wasn't coming out of a big-time football school. He wasn't a big name coming out. To become a starter and then become a star is a huge challenge.
I think being a middle round draft choice really helped him, because I think he came to the NFL knowing that I got to be great every day or I could be gone.
Being drafted in the 6th round was to me a knock. I made my mind up at that time that I'm going to give this my best effort.
With farm boy strength and a huge chip on his shoulder, he came into Jets training camp ready to fight for a spot on the roster.
We had drafted a guy by the name of Tank Marshall in the 3rd round. And all the veterans are telling me, Joe, the numbers don't work. You know, you're a 6th rounder, he's a 3rd rounder. They got too much money invested in him, they're not gonna cut him. They put him on IR. So here I was, I made the team. But that week, I remember the first team comes out and goes, all right guys, we're going half speed. I wasn't. I came out and I busted the guard in the mouth. I drilled the fullback in the backfield, and they're calling me every name in the book. And I said, listen guys, I don't care what you say. I'm gonna be here all day. You can come out and get whatever you want, but you got a job, and I don't.
In his rookie season, Klecko was relentless off the edge and wreaked havoc to the tune of 8 sacks.
I was the right guard, so I'd pull. Willie Parker was supposed to reach block this guy, Joe Klecko. And Joe was a rookie, nobody even knew anything about him. It was 1977. Anyhow, Willie couldn't block him. He had 1 tackle. We ran to play one time, tackle, 2-yard loss or something like that, Klecko in the backfield. Parker's frustrated. He's like, I can't block the friggin' guy. I don't know what they're calling the play for. Call it again in the 4th quarter, another sack. So it's 4th down, we run off the field. Willie takes his helmet off, gives it to Ray Whitehead. He said, you block him. I can't block you. We cannot block him like this.
Using a combination of leverage and brute strength, Klecko made life miserable for some of the best offensive linemen in NFL history.
His ability was one thing, but the key thing about Joe is he never, ever quit. He was one of the blue-collar guys in football, one of those guys that just never quit. He just kept coming, kept coming, kept coming. You could never take a break with Joe.
I love playing against them because you want to test yourself. And when you go to the Pro Bowl, you want to test yourself. We practiced against each other. Dang, I want to see how I do against this guy because he was the best.
The kind of problems that Joe Klecko gave them. They're Pro Football Hall of Famers. The respect they have for him is evident, and I think it speaks volumes.
In 1981, the New York Sack Exchange was born. Combining with Mark Gastineau, Marty Lyons, and Abdul Salam, Klecko and the Jets dismantled opposing quarterbacks with 66 sacks. Klecko led the NFL with 20 and a half, a franchise record.
20 and a half sacks in 1981. They're probably throwing the ball, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but they're throwing the ball a lot more now. We're throwing the ball at every level of football more. So that number is even more impressive in 1981 than it would be now.
He had 20 and a half sacks before the sacks were considered in official statistics. So you look at Joe's pages on NFL.com or Pro Football Reference, it shows 24 career sacks. But that discounts his sacks from his first 4 or 5 years in the league, including his most dominant season when he had 20 and a half.
His ability to play both outside and then to slide down and play inside, depending on what the play called for. I think that was huge, and clearly, without any question, he was the most versatile of those 4 guys.
I would just stress his overall excellence on a defense that had one of the coolest nicknames in NFL history, and the fact that he was the best player on that defensive line.
Displaying unparalleled versatility, the Jets played Joe at defensive end, defensive tackle, and nose tackle during his career. Despite the constant movement around the line, he was unstoppable against the pass and the run.
There are not many players in NFL history who've gotten 7+ sacks at the nose tackle position, which is what he had. He had 7.5 sacks. He had the ability to wiggle inside like a John Randall type, to play a very, very athletic nose tackle.
The guys who get credit for their run defense are linebackers and safeties. It's very rare that defensive linemen get looked at for their run-stopping ability.
When you play defensive end and you've been counted on, you have Gastineau on the other side to get to the quarterback, that's a completely different job than playing a defensive tackle in a 4-3 or nose tackle in a 3-4. Nose tackles in 3-4s are mainly, run stoppers and be expected to clog the middle, but Joe got good pressure from up the middle.
We tried to double him as much as we could. You get your hands inside. Once you got your hands inside with him, you hang on for dear life because he's going to try to throw you or club you or whatever.
He didn't care that much about the attention. And to me, that's a real team player. You're doing it for the team. He wasn't necessarily the guy who would be in front of the cameras. He was the guy that the Jets rallied around on and off the field.
You put a label on yourself. Whether everybody knows it or not, you put a label on yourself. Nobody can knock you out of a game. Nobody can stop you. Nobody can, take you to the point where you can't play anymore. And that's how I felt all the time. Whether I was hobbling on one leg, 1981, I played 12 or 14 games, whatever it was, and I'd shoot my foot up before a game and at halftime all the time. Nobody knew that, you know what I mean? But that's what I needed because my team needed me to win. And I think that's a big part of an individual's makeup, okay, of how much he'll put forth for his team. Because it is a team sport. It's not an individual sport.
The once unheralded and unknown Pennsylvania native changed the culture of the Jets franchise. He left his mark on the NFL with an unprecedented career.
He's one of the most unique performers in NFL history.
Somebody will say, well, what position did he play? He dominated at 3.
The 2 guys in my mind that were the best all around that I ever played in front of were Howie Long and Joe Klecko.
This is a guy that warrants, particularly with the senior committee, warrants really serious consideration.
As voters, we have a chance to get almost like a do-over on this, the senior committee category was conceived because of players like Joe Klecko, who got overlooked as a modern era candidate, and now there's a chance to get a do-over.
The respect that he has around the league, from his opponents, from people that he played with, other defensive linemen, Hall of Famers have gone on record talking about him being someone who they feel is a player that belongs in the Hall of Fame. You know, when you're talking about 25 years, in my mind, it's time.